I hope everybody can hear me. I think we have a video, but I'm not sure if it can.
Our lives will drastically change in 200 years from now.
More women will go into space.
Like robots, like you see in movies.
Probably be able to walk into a phone booth and get a new heart or something.
I think everyone's going to have microchips in their heads.
Cars might fly.
I just think it's going to be surreal.
Hopefully, in the next 200 years.
It's definitely going to happen.
It should have happened by now.
Yes, of course. This is one of the most important points in which our century is concentrating on.
In the future, it won't even have to be mentioned. Really?
Wow.
Really?
That surprises me, yeah.
Wow.
Well, who's going to be dragging their heels that long?
I don't think everybody wants to be equal. When you have the upper end, you don't want to lose it.
I think it's terribly sad that it's still an issue.
If girls didn't have the same choices, then it would be unfair.
We need to get more women into positions of power.
If you've got two people who are equally qualified, equally experienced, then they should be equally paid and equally treated. It's just common sense, really, isn't it?
So hello everyone. I know we're running a bit late. I don't have a timer. I have a habit of speaking too much and too long, so my teams will make signs to me if I'm running over time. I'm absolutely delighted to be with you today in Dubai, which is a city of business, in the UAE, where there's so much being done to push forward gender balance. And I have to tell you that for me, it's a very difficult trip. I came in very late last night from Paris. I'm on my way tomorrow morning to Seattle, but I wanted to be here. And I wanted to be here because I have something which I believe so strongly about moving the needle on gender balance. Yes, it is unfair and it's morally wrong to see those numbers, 217 years. Yes, it's socially wrong because we're depriving the world of the value that women can bring. But I have to say to people here who are in business and in organizations, that organizations and businesses that are not moving forward on a gender balance agenda are putting themselves at strategic risk. And we have heard all day today, or all morning, what's happening in the world in terms of change. And when you're strategically weak in a world of change, as organizations, we will die. And I am here to say that there is a big risk for organizations that do not move the needle on gender balance, that they will die. In my life, I have worked for 2 organizations, Fortune 500s, that have died. I can tell you, it's not a pleasant place to be in. So by way of context, I'm the CEO of a worldwide business of 6 billion euros. In 57 countries. I sit on the Group Executive Committee of Sodexo. I'm a founding member of our women's group, So Together, and I'm the Group Executive Sponsor for Sodexo Pride. Our company employs nearly 500,000 people worldwide. 55% of these, 260,000, are women. 57% of our board are women, starting with our chairwoman. 37% of our Group Executive Committee, 32% of our management team, and we think that is absolutely not enough because mathematically parity is at 50%, not 32%. And so we have given ourselves what I think is a very modest ambition to be at 40% by 2025, and I'll explain to you why those numbers. So I'm not here to present corporate, to present Sodexo. I am here to speak to you from my experience as a leader my experience as a woman in business for the last 33 years, my experience as a mother. I have 3 children who are starting off on their work life, and there are things that I think I can share. But this driving obsession that I have about strategic weakness if we're not in gender parity, I want to explain it to you. Because everything tells us, plain common business sense, that we should have at least 50% women in leadership. We know that talent is short and 60% of graduates are women. We know that we need to find new products and new services. 70% of the consumer choices are made by women. We know that all studies show that men and women consider that their women leaders are neither more inept nor more capable than the men above them. And we know certainly that women want to have more impact and want to be leaders. And yet, and this is the study that kept me awake for weeks, McKinsey's research shows that the majority of C-suite companies based in several countries, they understand the business case. If you ask the leaders, they'll tell you, yeah, we understand the business case, but only 29% of them do something about it. It's as if I was running a meeting with my senior management and they were saying, oh yeah, we've got the business case, it'll help drive more business, it'll attract consumers, it'll engage people, oh, but 70% of us are not going to do anything about it. That is absolutely unacceptable. It is something I would not accept in any kind of business situation. Why are we accepting it in businesses? It makes no sense. And to my mind, as I thought about it, I said the reason when things like that happen, it's what I call a strategic conundrum. It's because the strategy it's not being treated as an essential strategic priority. And things that are contradictory need to be treated strategically. And so I would propose that we treat this as a strategic issue in businesses, and that means that we use a traditional way of looking at resolving strategic issues. First of all, create scale for any kind of business. If you want to move the needle, you have to create scale. Secondly, you have to make some very radical management choices. You have to address urgent pain points, and you need to address them one at a time, because addressing an elephant all at one time will not get you very far. And then, because it's strategic, you need to have engagement at the highest level of the business. So the first thing I'd like to talk about is how you manage to scale. Having 3 people in an organization of 100 and saying we have 3 women in 100, that is good, but it is not scale. Okay? So scale, as I said, and I'll show you why we believe that, starts at 40%. You do not have the benefits of a gender-balanced organization if you have less than 40% women. And that means that we need to drive the numbers to that. And I often say to my teams on all kinds of subjects, numbers don't run us, we run the numbers, we plan for the numbers. And I want to give you an example. We have 32% of women in management in Sodexo. Good. We want to get to 40%. Now, for those who are doing the GRE tomorrow, I'll give you a simple mathematical rule. If you're at 32% and you want to get to 40%, you are going to promote more women than men. Okay? Because you can't do it mathematically unless you do that. The men who work for Sodexo, and there are some in this room, they know that. They know that there's going to be an unbalance. They accept it and they believe in it because it means that the company is going to grow faster and the company is going to have more opportunities for them. Okay? So that is the kind of thing that you have to do. And personally, and HR hates it when I do it, at this stage, for certain sensitive positions, I'm only accepting 100% women slates. No men, sorry. Because there are enough women with talent that we can get the right decisions and the right candidates in with a 100% female slate. And I tell the headhunters, that's the way it is. Now the question you may ask me is why 40%? Why are we not, maybe saying 30 is okay and we're doing great? Well, the reason for that is because the size of Sodexo has allowed us to run statistical to do a statistical analysis on a multi-year basis over 70,000 managers in more than 50 countries. And we know that when we start having teams that are 40% women, we start having a radical improvement. We're not talking about a marginal improvement. We're talking about 5–10% improvement on things that are important for our business. Engagement of employees, client satisfaction, growth, profit, cash, health and safety. There's not one that doesn't show radical improvement. Now, it also shows that if we have more than 60% women, that goes down. So as somebody said, it's not about women, it's about gender balance. So that's why we said at scale, we need to have 40% women managers for us to be our best, and that's the scale we run to. Now the second thing when you do this sort of strategic transformation is once you've managed the scale and you have the operations for it, what are the changes that you make, what are the choices that you make to be able to create the inclusion? Because strategy is about choices. So I'd say there's one basic, whatever you do, and I haven't heard much of it today. I have a lot of forgiveness for unconscious bias. I have many of them myself. I have a lot of tolerance for ignorance, because we're all ignorant about some things. But there has to be zero tolerance for sexual harassment and discrimination, and it has to be immediate. Now, I can tell you, and once again, not very popular with HR, because I have suspended people on the spot for things that they have said or that they have done, and apparently that's not always the way that you do it. But, you know, it's actually very difficult, because there is nothing worse for a manager to have to terminate or suspend or put on disciplinary hearing someone who's actually delivering numbers. Because that person is making you successful. And so, you know, it wasn't that important, it wasn't that bad. It is bad. It is bad because somebody's individual performance cannot jeopardize the credibility that you have with the employees that you're trying to retain, develop, and bring into the company. But that is the hardest choice, but it has to be absolutely zero tolerance. We've talked a lot about how to create an inclusive environment, great ideas. I've had a wonderful morning learning all about it. I just want to share two things. First of all, you know, we need to listen as women. It's not because I've been in business for 33 years that I know everything about what it means to be a woman in business. Actually, I know very little. I know my experience. And so if I'm not listening all the time to the women in the field, if I'm not spending time with them, I don't know what the problems are. You know, it took me a trip to India, and when I'm in countries, I try to spend as much time and do breakfast with the women leadership to understand that the issues of the women leadership for Sodexo in India wasn't about childcare, it was about parent care. And that if we weren't helping them with parent care, we weren't really addressing a pain point for them. So I would urge you, listen, learn. You don't know everything. And if people don't tell you, then you will make mistakes. The other thing which I've learned, and this is actually a bad side of a good problem, as more and more women come into management, they have to be careful that they're not imposing their way of managing onto men. Now, I'm saying this because, you know, this thing about men are 50% ready and they want their job, and women have to be 150% ready, and yada, yada, yada. And I think that's true, by the way. I hope it changed over time. But I've noticed that as a manager, I make men very frustrated because they come to me and they say, I'm ready, and I'm saying, no, you're not. Wait till you're 150%. And then they say, well, you know, so I've got to learn how to deal differently, and this is the extraordinary opportunity that we have, which is actually to engage men, particularly men of a new generation, and say, you know what, the huge opportunity is not to create the same model with more women than before. It's to create a different model of management. It's to engage men, it's to engage millennials, it's to engage all parts of the company, it's to create new career paths, it's to make that be of benefit for everybody. And so I want to give you, and I said to you, we need to tackle the problems one at a time. And the reason why I say that is because when you tackle one problem, usually you pull the thread for the other problems. And so I'd like to talk about mothers at work very quickly, but I want to show you how treating the problem of mothers at work is actually helping all the company. So first of all, not all women are mothers. I recognize that, but largely all mothers are women, right? Once again, you need to be sort of mathematic about these things. And when we look at where we're losing talent, when people leave companies at their peak time of performance, it's mothers who have difficulty handling the quality of their lives between their responsibilities as mothers and what they want as their careers. And I say no one should ever have to choose between a career and having children. Okay? They might choose to stay home with their children. They might choose to have careers, but it doesn't have to be a choice between the two. And so for that, I'm going to just give you a practical example. There's 3 things I think that we have to do. And I'm speaking here from my experience, but also from many working mothers in my teams. 1, there's a hidden bias. We have to debunk the myth that mothers who have careers are not good mothers. I'm sorry, it's not true. Research shows that I'll read it to you, 85% of millennials, men and women, surveyed, said that working mothers set a positive example for them as children. Being raised by a working mother positively correlates with a child's education level. It is good for society, it is good for women, it is good for organizations when women have careers and children. Okay? So that's the first myth and the first bias. The second myth and bias is that women who have careers and who have children are not productive. Well, I'm sorry, I work 24/7. I know I shouldn't be the example for everybody, but I think there is no study that shows that on output, and somebody talked about it, on output, women who have children are less productive at work than men who have children or no children, because the studies don't actually figure out whether men have children or not. Okay? So hidden bias, need to get that under the table. The second one is we have to get over a number of things. So can we get over the issue of maternity leave? I had 3 children. I had 33 years of career. It has basically taken 14 months out of my career. 14 months. That's all it is. Okay? So I say to women, that's all it is. It's 4 months. You'll be gone for 4 months. The world will not topple over in 4 months. I say to their managers, men and women, they'll be gone for 4 months. My goodness, arrange yourself, do something, organize yourself so that somebody can leave the company for 4 months out of a 460,000 person company, and the company will survive. It is just that amount of time. It's not the end of the world. The issue is coming back to work after you've had a child. And that is the responsibility of the company to be able to attract and retain their very talented women employees who've gone off on maternity leave. And the thing that worries me is statistics have come out in the UK recently. For women who are on maternity leave, 20% only want to come back. And those are management positions. So highly skilled, highly engaged, highly productive, and yet they don't want to come back. And that's a company issue to deal with. And when you look at what it needs to have to be able to be sorted, whether it's affordable childcare, part-time work, career flexibility, supporting early childhood education, parental leave for men and women, actually that's not about women. That's about men and women. It's about providing a better quality of life at work for all. So I just wanted to show you that by trying to sort a problem on gender balance, The opportunity is actually to create a better work-life balance for everyone, a more attractive and a more productive workplace for everybody who's there. So once we've gone at scale, once we've looked at how we make the choices for inclusion, once we've sorted some small problems that are big, but one at a time, I think my last point would be just start at the very top. You know, for years and years and years and years, I said, I don't want quotas on boards, it's not blah, blah, blah. But the fact is, you know, I see what it makes as a difference. We have a chairwoman. It makes an amazing amount of difference to have women on boards. And studies show that a 10% increase on women on the board correlates to 21% increase in women in executive positions. So let's make boards be more female-friendly, better female representation, and I can tell you that the needle will move on this issue. And I'm just going to leave you with a few words, because the fact is that many companies, over time, and you will see it over and over again, even when they know that they have a strategic issue, will not move on it. And so they may choose to die, that happens, or they may choose to move on. So it will very well be the case that many companies will not choose to be women-friendly. And then I have to tell you, all of you as women and men, because I think it's a men and women issue, you have power. And your power is to vote with your feet. And so I will tell you what I tell my children when they ask me about career advice. It's not often, but sometimes they do. So to my 2 daughters and my son, I say, first of all, no one is doing you a favor by employing you. You are doing them a favor by going to work for them. Secondly, embrace the choice of life that you have. Choose your employer accordingly, and make sure that you have backups in case you've made a mistake or that choice doesn't mean anything anymore. And final point, whatever choice you want to make for your employer, don't judge other people's choices. Let them choose. And then, of course, now I can come back from Dubai and I can give them a last piece of advice, which is to remember that the future is female. Thank you.